Hi, my name is Shauna Wiebach, and I will be presenting on historical climate events in the Hanjiang River Basin in China and Hamburg, Germany. Figure 1 is from Felix Mach's article titled The Great Flood of 1962 in Hamburg. It shows a flooded harbor in Hamburg, Germany, which is the second region I discuss in my presentation. All images are cited in Bibliography C, located at the end of the presentation. The first region I focused on is the Hanjiang River Basin in China. In the reconstruction and analysis of extreme drought and flood events in the Hanjiang River Basin since 1426 article by Zhang and 5 other authors listed in Bibliography A, it states that the most common historical records of natural disasters in China are droughts and floods. This article examines historical records of climate events in China with the primary focus on the Hanjiang River Basin, which is said to be located in the northern subtropical climate zone and south of the Zinling Mountains. Using 4 datasets and the reconstruction method of historical records, they found that between 1426 to 2017, there were 45 extreme drought events and 51 extreme flood events. Figure 2 depicts a map of the river basin, along with its flow direction and where there are dams, cities, and hydrometric stations. And the figure is from the ResearchGate website. To build the reconstruction and analysis of extreme drought and flood events in Hanjing River Basin since 1426 article, Zhang and the other authors use various historical record sources, including local chronicles, archives, notes, letters, newspapers, magazines, worker file transcripts, etc. They examine the amount of extreme flood and drought events per century. The results showed that the 20th century had the most for both, and the 18th century had a low amount of both. They also had several other findings regarding the frequency of these events per century. The next aspect of the article focuses on other factors that influence whether there were more or less extreme droughts or floods per century. They started with the Asian monsoon's impact on the river basin and found that there are more droughts when it is weak and more floods when it is strong. Another factor they examined was El Niño and La Niña events. As defined by the National Weather Service, in the El Niño/Southern Oscillation (ENSO) cycle, El Niño creates a warming phase while La Niña creates cooling. When these events are stronger, there is more flooding. The last factor they looked into was large volcanic eruptions. Large volcanic eruptions can create a higher frequency of floods, but they found that they have different effects in different regions in China. Figure 3 is from the same article written by Zhang and 5 other authors, again listed in the bibliography. It shows the rate of drought and flood events in particular areas of the river basin for 3 different time periods. For the second region, I focused on Hamburg, Germany. According to the website Encyclopedia Britannica, under the Hamburg article, Hamburg, Germany is located on the Elbe River and said to be the country's largest port. Being located on the river and near the North Sea, as seen on the map in Figure 4, also found on the website Encyclopedia Britannica under Hamburg, makes the city more at risk of storm surge. Christina Lizelle also discusses this risk in her article titled How Hamburg Recovered After the Catastrophic Flood of 1962, which discusses how most of the residents were unprepared and shocked when an actual storm surge occurred for them. As for the climate, the Hamburg article of Encyclopedia Britannica states that, quote, Hamburg has mild winters, late springs, relatively cool summers, high humidity, and frequent fog, unquote. As described by Felix Mach, in February of 1962, a flood unexpectedly hit Hamburg, Germany. The flood had occurred due to the storm Vincent. Most of the population needed help escaping the flooded areas. Around 26,000 helpers, including firefighters, Red Cross, the German Armed Forces, and international volunteers, came to evacuate residents. There were a total of 315 human deaths and thousands of animals lost to the flood in Hamburg. The image in Figure 5, found in Felix Mach's article, The Great Flood of 1962 in Hamburg, depicts the flooded city and how submerged some of the infrastructure was, emphasizing why it was difficult for some residents to escape. This disastrous flood motivated changes in the city's preparedness for storm surges. Mach describes how they installed new flood protections, which included strengthening the dikes. The city and its residents are now more equipped with disaster plans, and despite other floodings that have occurred since 1962, none were as harmful as this specific flood. For the first region I discussed, the Hanjing River Basin in China, Zhang and the 5 other authors' study allows them to better predict climate change patterns for the future. They can do so because of their examination of what factors contribute to a higher frequency of extreme floods and droughts, along with what centuries have the highest frequency of these events. Figure 6 shows a flood in the Hanjiang River found on Global Times website. For the second region I focused on, Hamburg, Germany, as mentioned previously, they implemented stronger disaster plans and better protection against flooding to prevent a disastrous flood like the one that happened in 1962, and to better prepare its residents for what to do in that situation if it were to happen again, as discussed in Felix Mock's article. Ultimately, both regions use historical records to understand past historical climate and better prepare for future climate events as well. Here is bibliography A for my peer-reviewed sources. Here's bibliography B for my supplemental sources. And lastly, here is bibliography C for all of my images. Thank you for watching.